There is a particular kind of silence that follows. Not the peaceful kind, not the silence of a sleeping house or a Sunday morning. This is the silence that comes after your voice went somewhere you did not intend for it to go. After the word came out too sharp, or the door closed too hard, or you heard yourself, really heard yourself, and did not recognize what you sounded like. Your child has gone quiet, and in that quiet, something happens to you that no one talks about. It is not sadness, exactly. It is more precise than that. It is the specific, nauseating sensation of watching your own child recalibrate in real time. The small shift in their posture. The way their eyes find something else to look at. You did that. That thought. You did that. Will follow you for the rest of the day. Maybe longer. It will sit with you through dinner and through bedtime and through the dark part of the night when the house is finally, fully asleep and you are still awake, replaying it. Here is what I need you to understand before anything else. There is a body of neuroscience, decades of it, built in laboratories, documented in peer-reviewed journals, replicated across cultures and continents, that does not just forgive what happened today. It argues, with extraordinary precision, that what you do after a moment like that, one may be the single most important thing you ever do for your child's brain. There is a sentence that lives inside most parents. It arrived quietly, the way the most damaging things tend to. It came from a well-meaning grandmother, or a parenting forum at 2 a.m, or a single line in a book you read while still in the hospital, still tender, still terrified of doing it wrong. And the sentence goes something like this: a good parent does not lose their temper, or a variation of it. Children who grow up with angry parents develop anxiety, or yelling breaks the bond, or the most insidious version of all, the one that does not use words but communicates in the performance of other parents around you, the ones who seem to never raise their voices, the ones whose children seem to comply in quiet, graceful increments, the ones who make you feel, simply by existing, like you are doing something fundamentally wrong. That sentence, in all its forms, has produced an entire generation of parents who are not just trying to be patient. They are trying to be perfect, permanently regulated, permanently available, permanently calm in a way that the human nervous system was never designed to sustain. And when they fail, when the voice rises or the door slams or the words come out with more edge than they intended, the sentence returns. And it brings something with it. Shame, not guilt. Guilt says I did something wrong. Guilt is navigable. Shame says something different. Shame says I am something wrong. And once shame enters the room, it does a very specific kind of damage, not to your child, but to you. It convinces you that what just happened is evidence of a fixed, irreparable flaw, that you are, at your core, too broken to give your child what they need. That is the myth, not just the myth that yelling damages children. We will come to the actual science of that in a moment. The deeper myth is this, that the measurement of a good parent is the absence of rupture, that the goal is a relationship without conflict, that if you can just engineer enough calm, enough consistency, enough control, you will have protected your child from the full weight of human imperfection. That myth is not just wrong. It is, as the research shows with startling clarity, the precise opposite of what a child's developing brain actually needs. In 1975, a developmental psychologist named Edward Tronick began a series of experiments that would quietly rewrite everything we thought we understood about the emotional lives of infants. Tronick was a researcher at Harvard. He was interested in a question that sounds simple on the surface, but turns out to be one of the most complex questions in all of developmental science. What does a healthy emotional bond between a parent and child actually look like, moment to moment, when you put it under a microscope? So he did exactly that. He brought mothers and their infants into a laboratory. He filmed their interactions in granular, frame-by-frame detail. And then he sat with the footage and did something no one had thought to do quite so rigorously before. He measured the precise moments of connection. When the mother's face mirrored the baby's expression, when her voice matched the baby's rhythm, when she understood, accurately and instantly, what the baby needed. And he set those moments against the rest. What he found changed the field. Tronick discovered that even in the warmest, most loving, most securely attached mother-infant pairs he studied, the dyad, the unit of the two of them together, was in a state of genuine, mutual attunement for roughly 30% of observed time. 30%. The other 70% was characterized by what Tronick called misattunement, moments where the mother misread the cue, moments where she was distracted or tired or simply a fraction of a second behind. Moments of disconnect. Moments of what we might, in plainer language, call getting it wrong. 30%. This is not a statistic about struggling parents. This is not a statistic about neglectful homes or difficult circumstances or parents who needed intervention. This is a statistic about the best-case scenario, about love, working as intended. And yet this finding is almost never shared with parents, because it complicates the story we prefer to tell. The story of the perfect, continuously attuned parent as the gold standard. That story requires a different number. It requires something closer to 90, or 95, or 100. It requires a level of emotional synchrony that Tronick's lifetime of research says does not exist, has never existed, is not, in fact, the point. Here is where it becomes something else entirely. Because Tronick did not just measure the misattunement, he measured what happened after it. He tracked the moments when the connection broke, when the mother misread the signal, when the baby's face shifted into distress, when the gap opened between them, and then he watched what the healthy, secure pairs did next. They came back, not perfectly, not immediately, but reliably. The mother noticed the shift. She adjusted. She tried a different expression, a different sound, a different kind of contact, until something landed, until the baby's face reorganized, until the connection reestablished itself, until the gap closed. Tronick called this process interactive repair. That is the technical term, interactive repair. And I want to spend a moment with it before we translate it into plain language, because the word interactive is doing significant work. It does not say parental repair or maternal correction. It says interactive, meaning both parties are changed by the process. Both nervous systems are engaged. Both brains are actively reorganizing in response to the rupture and the return. What Tronick found, and what subsequent decades of research have continued to confirm, is that this cycle of misattunement and repair is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. It is the precise mechanism by which a child's brain learns the most fundamental and most transferable skill a human being can possess. That connection can break, and that it can safely be put back together. A child who never experiences misattunement does not learn this. A child raised in an environment of manufactured, uninterrupted calm does not develop the neural architecture for emotional resilience in the same way. Because the brain does not build strength in the absence of challenge, it builds strength in the navigation of it. The rupture is not the failure. The rupture is the curriculum. Let us come back to the silence. Your child, in their room. You, somewhere in the house, with the weight of what just happened still sitting in your chest. The interaction is over, but something is still open. Something unresolved is still moving through both of your nervous systems, yours and theirs, like a current that has not yet found its ground. What is actually happening at a neurological level in your child right now? When a young child experiences an emotional rupture, particularly with a primary attachment figure, which is you, their stress response system activates. Cortisol rises. The amygdala, which is the brain's threat detection center, registers the disruption. If the child is very young, they do not have the prefrontal cortical development to contextualize what just happened. They cannot tell themselves, "My parent is overwhelmed right now. This is not about me. This will pass." That capacity comes later, and only if the brain has been given enough evidence to build it on. What the child's brain is waiting for, in the silence after a rupture, is data. Specifically, it is waiting to find out whether its most fundamental hypothesis about the world, "I am loved, I am safe, connection is reliable," is still true. The rupture has introduced a question. The child's nervous system is holding that question open, running on stress hormones, waiting for an answer. The repair is the answer. When you walk back into that room, when you sit beside them and look at them and speak to them in a tone that is calm, honest, and accountable, something measurable happens in their brain. The cortisol begins to lower. The amygdala receives a counter signal, and in the prefrontal cortex, in those still forming neural pathways that will eventually become your child's capacity for emotional self-regulation, a new connection is laid down. Not the connection that says conflict does not happen. The connection that says when conflict happens, we find our way back. The researcher and neuropsychiatrist Allan Schore, whose work on early brain development at UCLA has been foundational to the field, describes this process as the child's nervous system learning to re-regulate through the co-regulation of another. In plain language, your child learns to calm down because you showed them, repeatedly, over time, in moments exactly like this one, that calm is possible after a storm. Their brain literally borrows your nervous system, your steady voice, your open body language, your physical proximity, and uses it as a template. This is why the apology matters so much more than most parents understand. Not as a gesture of guilt, not as a performance of contrition designed to soothe your own shame, but as a neurological event, as concrete, biological evidence delivered directly to your child's developing brain that the person they love most in the world can lose their footing and find it again, can be imperfect and honest about it, can break something, and know how to hold the broken pieces in a way that makes the whole thing stronger. That is not a small thing to teach a child. That is, arguably, the most important thing. And here is where it becomes urgent to say something about the parents who never lose their temper, or who have learned to suppress it so completely that their children never see it surface. Because the research here is uncomfortable, and it is important. A child who grows up without ever witnessing a parent rupture and genuinely repair is not learning that conflict is manageable. They are learning, instead, one of several other things. They are learning that adults do not have difficult emotions. They are learning to be confused and destabilized when they eventually encounter conflict in the world outside your home because they have no neural template for what recovery looks like. Or, and this is the finding that Tronick's work points to most quietly, they are learning that the appearance of calm is more important than the truth of what is happening underneath it. That is not resilience. That is performance, passed from one generation to the next. So you are going to open the door. And when you do, there is a specific sequence, not a script. Because children can hear a script, they are more attuned to inauthenticity than we give them credit for. But a sequence of principles that the neuroscience and developmental psychology consistently support. 3 of them, only 3, because you are tired and the brain does not absorb overwhelm. The first is this: wait until you are genuinely regulated before you re-enter. Not for hours. Not so long that the repair window closes and the silence hardens into something else, but enough time that your own nervous system has settled, that the cortisol in your own bloodstream has lowered, that your voice, when you speak, will carry the quality your child's nervous system needs to borrow. 5 minutes. 10. A glass of cold water and 3 slow breaths in the kitchen. You cannot co-regulate a child from a dysregulated state. You can only transfer the dysregulation to them. This is not a moral judgment. It is biology. Go and find your own ground first. The second is this. Name what happened, clearly and without deflection. This is the part that trips most parents, because shame wants to soften the edges. Shame wants to say, I was not feeling well today, or things have been hard lately, or you know how much mama loves you, right? Anything that turns the moment away from clean accountability. But the child's brain does not need an explanation. It does not need your context or your extenuating circumstances. It needs, with remarkable specificity, to hear three things: what you did, that it was not their fault, and that you are sorry. That is all. I raised my voice at you. That was not okay, and it was not your fault. I am sorry. 11 words. You do not need to over-explain. You do not need to process your childhood trauma with a 4-year-old. You do not need to ask them if they forgive you, which places an emotional burden on them that they are not developmentally equipped to carry. You say, what happened? You take the weight of it. You put it down in the right place. On your shoulders, not theirs. The third is this. Let the physical repair follow, not precede the verbal one. The instinct, when you walk back into the room, is to reach for them immediately, to hug them, to hold them, to use the warmth of your body to fast forward past the discomfort of what just happened. But many children, particularly after a frightening emotional event, need the words to land first. They need to understand, cognitively, that you have taken accountability before they can receive your physical closeness as comfort rather than pressure. Sit beside them, not over them. Let your body language communicate that you are available, not urgent, and then wait for them to come to you, or to let you come to them in their own time. That waiting, that unhurried, accountable presence is the repair working. You can feel it shift in the room when it happens. You will lose your temper again. I do not say that to wound you. I say it because it is true, and because you know it is true, and because the pretense that this was the last time is one of the ways shame keeps its grip. The goal was never a life without rupture. Tronick's research made that clear 50 years ago, and every replication since has said the same thing. The goal, the only goal that the science consistently supports, is a high repair rate, not a low rupture rate, not the absence of hard moments, or raised voices or closed doors that you wish, immediately and completely, you could open again, but the consistent, practiced, humble art of coming back, of sitting down beside the person you love most in the world and saying, clearly and without flinching, I got that wrong, and you are not carrying it. That is the work. Not because it is easy, not because it feels natural when you are standing in the hallway with your heart still beating too fast and your pride still a little bruised and the evening still somehow needing to be gotten through, but because the neuroscience is unambiguous on this point. The child who watches a parent fail and repair, fail and repair, fail and repair across the length of a childhood does not grow up damaged by the failing. They grow up knowing something rare. They grow up knowing that love is not the absence of rupture. That connection is not a fragile thing that shatters the first time a voice goes sharp or a door closes hard. That the people who matter most to them are human beings. Full, complicated, struggling, trying human beings. And that those human beings choose, every single time, to come back. That knowledge will hold them through every hard thing they face without you. And it begins tonight. It begins with a door, and a breath, and 11 words, and a willingness to sit beside them for as long as it takes. If this gave you something, a little more room to breathe inside the kind of parent you are trying to be, then there is more of this waiting for you here. Real science, no judgment, just the research that actually holds when it meets the reality of what raising a child inside a human body genuinely costs. A subscription means the next one finds you. Go open the door.